Alrighty, last time we were right at the end of this major division of Treatise on Cosmic Fire. Basically, TCF has three divisions. The first one on the third aspect of divinity, and we're right at the tail end of that. And then this really long section, the middle section, it's over 1,000 pages long, on the second aspect, on the soul aspect, of course, which was DK's main focus, and then a little short section at the end on the spirit aspect. So, yeah, we're probably, well, certainly this will be the last full session on this third aspect of divinity. And then next time we'll turn the page into the second great section. Anyway, so we were studying the law of economy where we finished this long footnote from Some Thoughts on the Gita, which explores the concept of the world song. Remember that? And how sound is utilized by the Dhyani Chohans, which are the building devas, to shape and organize the subplanes of the cosmic physical plane. So big part of creation comes through sound and the sounding of the word. In the latter part of this footnote, we learned that while vowels symbolize a spiritual aspect, consonants consonants represent the crystallized forms that collectively compose the universe. So you have the animating spirit in the coming in through the vowels, and then the form building comes in through the combination of those vowels in certain series of consonants. We then learned that the world to a thinker is the magic motion produced by the Orphean singer or the Hindu Saraswati, with the world thinker in this context being one who is able to perceive and manipulate the creative forces that animate the cosmic etheric planes, literally working in cosmic etheric matter. The quote, magic motion produced by the Orphean singer or the Hindu Saraswati gives us two examples of great beings who mastered these higher energies in order to produce tangible magical results. I mean, Saraswati is an Indian goddess and is a I would think a very high Devic being, whereas Orpheus was an actual incarnated avatar, Greek avatar early, and was known for his ability to, well, he was almost certainly was a fourth ray master and was able to bring these magical potencies down onto the physical plane. Next, we learned that all the karmic agencies, that out of all the karmic agencies, speech is the most important because it, quote, works in ether, which rules the lower quaternary or elements, air, fire, water, and earth. And because through its vowels and consonants, language contains all the elements required to move the different classes of devas. So one is able to magically communicate with the devas. Of course, it's an advanced form of magical practice. Also, it's fraught with danger for those who have any vestige of personality, desire. These devas can prey on that, so you have to be squeaky clean to do this work. Developing a conscious awareness of these effects, these magical effects, is gained through the study of mantra shastra. We looked at this briefly last time. We then return to the text where we learn that the life of a solar system lasts for 100 years of Brahma, during which the sacred sound AUM is sounded in its various permutations, depending on what cycle within that solar logoic life is being expressed. In this section, DK examines these three letters, each serving as the initial of a subsidiary phrase. So it's not really aum, A-U-M, but is rather A period, U period, M period, which represents a whole series of words and phrases. The phrase linked to the M sound is the note of Brahma and symbolizes the intelligent aspects, and it comprises of four distinct sounds, but though made up of four sounds, Brahmic M is expressive of the quote, mystery hidden, here it is. Mystery hidden in the pentagon, in the fifth principle of mind, and in the five planes of human evolution. DK then tells us that these five letters, when sounded forth on the right note, give the key to the true inwardness of matter. You have to love that phrase. The key to the true inwardness of matter, and also to its control. This control being based on the right interpretation of the law of economy. There's no explanation as to how or why four sounds are expressed through five letters, but so it is. We then learned about the note of the Vishnu aspect, which is made up of 7 letters, one each for the 7 heavenly men, through which all the various forms that make up a solar system are built. And this takes us up to where we left off last time. Next, moving on. Then a third word or phrase is added to the other 2, completing the entire word logoic and producing consummation. It is a word of 9 letters, making therefore the 21 sounds, 5 plus 7 plus 9, of this solar system. Okay, so 5 is the number of the last solar system, 7 the number of this solar system, and 9 is the number of the next and final solar system, thus making 21 the number of the combined manifested life of the solar logos. Some numerology here. You have the 1 in 21 representing the spirit aspect, the 2 representing the soul aspect, or the second aspect, which the solar system is oriented towards, and their combination, 2 plus 1 representing 3, the third aspect. So you have all 3 expressions of the solar logos, even in this combined number. 5 also just represents the personality, the intelligent aspect of and up through even the higher subplanes of the soul. In other words, the enlightened mind and the lower quaternary. Seven also represents the seven rays and the seven heavenly men, which are the unique expression of this particular solar system. And nine represents, it's a number of consummation. Um, it's the last number before a new cycle, nine, and then you go to 10, which reduces to one, representing a new cycle. It's also the three aspects of each of the three faces of the Trinity, 333. Um, and so you have Atma, Buddhi, Manas, and DK actually, some pages back, he gave us a list of where you have Atma, Buddhi, uh, Atma, Buddhi, and then Atma, Buddhi, Manas, and then all permutations giving us the nine of the final expression of divinity. Next, the final nine sounds produce spiritual synthesis and the dissociation of the spirit from the form. We have a correspondence in the nine initiations, each initiation marking a more perfect union of the self with the all self and a further liberation from the trammels of matter. So nine is the number of completion and thus of spiritual synthesis, hence its relation to the next solar system. This is the note of Shiva, whose 9 letters express a vibrational formula that releases the indweller from all form expression at the end of a cycle, in the same way that the 9 initiations do for the individual or group before that solar systemic cycle is completed, because initiation is uh, by individuals or group always happens before the humanity reaches that same stage as a kingdom, and at a much later time. Okay, by the way, thoughts, questions are, always welcome. If you have any ideas about any of the content, speak up. It's always more interesting to have a dialogue than to have a monologue, as Barbara is about to prove right now. Yes, Barbara. Are you muted? Let me look at your,
Okay, now I'm unmuted.
there you go. Okay.
Yes, so there is a science of singing in which it's possible to um, expand the cavity of the mouth and the throat, um, and to produce certain vibrations that will stimulate the pineal gland. Um, so these sacred sounds can actually physically stimulate
Yeah.
uh, the upper roof of the cavity to get a vibration going, which will stimulate the pineal gland and then onward to the crown chakra. So I think there's a science that's developing that um, supports the spiritual aspect of certain sound vibrations.
It sounds to me like that's a function of mantra shastra, this idea, because you have in this discipline, you have very specific sounds associated with all parts of the body, and with also with different chakras, as you can see here, um, within the body. Of course, this has to be a guided process, because you can imagine how dangerous it would be to stimulate a chakra that you haven't purified yourself to the extent that uh, it is safe to stimulate that chakra. Through sound, the chakra could be stimulated nevertheless. And so it really does have to be done under guidance. But
Well, I wonder, I think that there are elementary aspects of these sciences, some of them very ancient, some modern, um, that are important in starting to realize certain vibrational fields and to work with them a little bit. So, even singers on the stage are taught some of these practices
yeah,
because it carries a vibration through the whole of the audience. So I think that even though the higher levels are at higher initiations,
right.
uh, that it's important to get at least some sense of this field because um, it connects with so many different internal powers. So.
I agree. I think there's that you could call it an exoteric branch of this higher teaching that would be useful to anyone who would be willing to take it on because it wouldn't endanger the quote unquote singer, you know. Um, yeah. So you ever noticed how, generally speaking, singers tend to be very happy people? I always was struck by that in the choruses I've sung in, that there's this kind of abiding joy that comes in singing. And uh, I've had some very profound experiences singing, for instance, Bach. Um, and it's, I think it's because you literally are filling your vehicle with this vibration, with the vibratory quality of the music. You're not just coming in through the ears, but by sounding it, you bring it into, well, your entire body literally vibrates as a result of your voice, and you're bringing it into a much deeper parts of your body. So thank you for that, Barbara, and Veronica.
We talk about three systems, but actually there weren't three systems. I remember Michael Robbins saying that there were five before. These are the three major systems, and I was wondering what next if the third system comes and finishes. Probably we have finished a cycle. It doesn't mean we won't have other systems. Am I thinking it right?
Are you talking about uh, solar systemic cycles? I'm not sure your reference here.
Well, we're saying this, the first system was third ray, the second system is on the ray of
Oh,
love, and then the third system. So when we say that system, are we talking about the system of our solar logos? Are we talking about the cosmos? What are we talking about?
the solar logos. And that solar logos has three major incarnations, though um, there are minor incarnations in between those, most likely seven in total. And we're currently in the second major incarnation of the solar logos, which is why our solar logos has both the second ray soul and second ray personality. Um,
Okay, after that, he won't incarnate again, I guess.
After that, what?
Will he incarnate again? Will he come
Yeah,
again?
yeah. DK teaches, it's in TCF in later in the book. Um, we'll get to it probably in 20 or 30 years, where he talks about the nature of the first solar system. Well, he kind of briefly touches on it right here in this section on sound, but and that it will, see, I think somewhere he says that the skies will be red instead of blue like they are now in connection with the ray color. Of course, that red is not the red we know at all. In fact, the red of the first ray is not the red we know at all, which is one reason I never used it in my art, because it's a red as we know it tends to be more like a sixth ray stimulatory color. But yeah, anyway, he does give a number of teachings on the coming solar system. And so, yes, the solar logos will incarnate again. Anyone else? Thank you. Okay, so next up, could we get a reader, please?
Yeah, before that, there's one question. What fire is singing a mantra? Fire by friction?
Hopefully not only, of course, the fact of your vocal cords moving and that it's a physical expression would engage fire by friction, but I think it could also has the ability to stimulate solar fire. But that, of course, isn't automatic. I mean, if you sing, you're demonstrating fire by friction. But I think if you're able to tap into the soul vibration, that you can literally express solar fire. And as far as electric fire, I don't know. I don't know if it's possible, you know, even for a master of wisdom incarnate to express electric fire through singing. That's would be an interesting question to ask somebody like a master of wisdom. Anyone else?
No, that was it.
Oh, I see. That was Tara Schaller. Okay, thank you, Tara. All right. A reader, please.
Veronica, you want to read?
Yes. When the sense of hearing on all planes is perfected, which is brought about by the law of economy, rightly you understood, these three great words or phrases will be known. The knower will utter them in his own true key, thus blending his own sound with the entire volume of vibration, and thereby achieving sudden realization of his essential identity with those who utter the words. As the sound of matter or Brahma peals forth in his ears on the plains, he will see all forms as illusion and will be freed, knowing himself as omnipresent. As the sound of Vishnu reverberates within himself, he knows himself as perfected wisdom and distinguishes the note of his being or that of the heavenly man in whose body he finds place from the group notes and knows himself as omniscient. As the note of the first or Mahadeva aspect follows upon the other two, he realizes himself as pure spirit, and on the consummation of the chord is merged in the self or the source from which he came.
Thank you, Anne Veronica. That word is omniscient.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. My Greek is quite a bit worse than your English. Like non-existent. Okay, first, when the sense of hearing on all planes is perfected, which is brought about by the law of economy rightly understood, these three great words or phrases will be known. Hearing, the first sense to manifest and be developed, is associated with the physical plane. and is thus the most resonant to the law of economy. It's the sense that is most aligned with and resonant of the law of economy. It is also, obviously, the sense by which the 21 sounds are eventually recognized and understood, because they're hearing on all levels, all the way up through the atmic, and my guess is that in the next solar system, also on the monadic, and who knows, maybe even the logoic. Here, DK ties a comprehensive understanding of the law of economy with perfected hearing through mastery of the 21 sounds, which represents all creative activity during the life of the solar system. You know, creation happens through sound, and therefore these 21 sounds embrace all creation, the means by which all creation occurs, right? It's what activates the Davic kingdom to manifest. DK tells us that, quote unquote, all planes are involved, whereas the description of the senses given back on page 188 includes only the atmic plane and below. Presumably, the ninefold word cannot be comprehended without the addition of the highest two planes, the monadic and logoic, of course, which would occur in the next solar system. An alternative possibility is that there are descriptions of the senses on monadic levels. I doubt that in the solar system there is a logoic counterpart because it's considered a plane of absolute synthesis. There might be monadic senses, but if so, they're unpublished. Next, the knower will utter them in his own true key, thus blending his own sound with the entire volume of vibration, and thereby achieving sudden realization of his essential identity with those who utter the words. Extraordinary. We have here a description of identification produced through sound. The true key, quote unquote, of the knower is probably the key of one's monad, which key would necessarily be the ninefold word added to the seven and fivefold words. Identification also occurs through touch and sight, but since sound is cosmically associated with the cosmic physical plane, it is the method of identification employed on this cosmic physical plane, right? Sound, that is, right? Can we get a reader for this, please?
Barbara, you want to read?
Yes. Preeminently, the physical plane is the plane of hearing, and hence the sense ascribed to the lowest plane of evolution and of each of the five planes. On this seventh or lowest plane, man has to come to full cognizance of the effect of the sacred word as it is in process of sounding forth. As it reverberates throughout the system, it drives matter into its appointed place, and on the physical plane finds its point of deepest materiality and of most concrete demonstration.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, so the crux of this quote is, as it reverberates throughout the system, it drives matter into its appointed place. So, excuse me, that would be the matter of each of these planes, right? And there are certain words and word phrases for each of these planes that would be very specific to the creation of the form aspect on these planes through the David kingdom of each of these planes, right? Um, and then on the physical plane finds its point of deepest materiality and a most concrete demonstration. That phrase in itself suggesting that it demonstrates on each of the planes. You know, at FOHAD demonstrate as sound, uh, all capitals, SOUND is the way DK describes it. Um, on the monadic plane and as the word on the atmic plane. So you see, I think Barbara was asking a question about how the interrelation between sound and FOHAD. And they're literally one on these two higher planes. Then FOHAD becomes color, meaning that which covers on the Buddhic plane, right? And it gets quite complicated when it gets down into the mental plane. There's about 10 pages on how FOHAD demonstrates on the mental plane. But yeah, so you have a coming together of the Fohadic force and of sound and the word on monadic and atmic levels. Okay, next, as the sound of matter.
I have a question about that.
Go ahead. Is that Nisa?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The second statement, it sounds to me like for us acting as individuals and coming together and uniting in a group to say, in my mind, I'm thinking of the Great Invocation. And it seems to me that that second part, that second sentence, speaks to having a maintaining of your focus or the group focus as the group. Because in my mind, each of the mantra, you know, from the point of light, that each section of that goes, the intent is to send it to Shambhala or to hierarchy or, to humanity. And that this speaks to the importance on our level of maintaining focus and intent
Mm-hmm.
when we sound and send forth our word in alignment with the Great Invocation, for example, in my mind.
Right, right. So you're talking about this sentence on the seventh or lowest plane, man has come to full cognizance of the effect of the sacred word as it is in process of sounding forth, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay, first of all, it would, to gain full cognizance of the effect of the sacred word, you would have to be an initiate. And the, for instance, the Great Invocation sounded by a group would literally activate the group soul, and it would actually be sounding forth through the group soul, because when you're group conscious, you you're you are actually sounding the sacred word as the group soul, right? And DK, I always remember this, which is that silent sounding is more powerful than outer verbalization. Of course, the the, the degree of your, where you are on the path of return is more is of the primary importance, right? But there are meditations given by DK where he he asks you to sound the word silently and then to sound it outwardly, suggesting that the first, the sounding silently, uh, um, activates that inner voice, which is connected with still small voice of the soul and with group consciousness, right? And then sounding it outwardly after successfully sounding it silently brings that potency down onto the physical plane. But it all depends on the consciousness of the one sounding. Thank you, Nisa. Tara?
Hi guys. So I was watching the Lucius Trust video for the new moon yesterday, and Kathy Newman brought up we were talking about AI, and I invite you to watch it. It's at like the 49-minute mark, and she talks about how she's seen videos of some nefarious entity showing up in the sky and doing these ohms and stuff. And now that you're saying that the lowest plane is the physical plane and that hearing is the lowest plane of evolution, that makes sense because we're on the physical plane, and so we're so liable to be tricked by that. She says hoodwinked, which is kind of funny, but yeah, so that was really
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, magic on both sides is done through the sounding, through mantra, right? And so you can bet black magicians also um, have very specific rituals by which they sound forth words with the intent of increasing the potency of the third aspect, of having the form dominate and obscure the spirit aspect, because that's the purpose of the Dark Brotherhood. Yeah, thank you, Tara. Okay, anybody else? All right. All right, so next up. Okay, as the sound of matter or of Brahma peals forth in his ears on all the planes, he will see all forms as illusion and will be freed, knowing himself as omnipresent. Okay, obviously we're talking about a very high initiate who's able to have this experience, right? This is high white magic that is able to uh, to understand and to see and in other ways sense the vibratory field known as Brahma, and then to uh, manipulate that field through sound, right? Since omnipresence has to do with time and space, it is the preeminent quality of Brahma. The phrase sound of matter further ties identification through sound to the law of economy, which is in its totality oriented towards the manipulation of matter or understanding it, but ultimately the manipulation of matter. From this passage, we learn that the illusion of form is that which prevents one from realizing his or her inherent omnipresence. That is, being all places at once. Next, as the sound of Vishnu reverberates within himself, he knows himself as perfected wisdom and distinguishes the note of his being, or that of the heavenly man in whose body he finds place, from the group notes, and knows himself as omniscient. So we here move from omnipresence to omniscience. This speaks to the second or bridging aspect of divinity, the Vishnu aspect, suggesting that wisdom, eternally present and accessed through the quote unquote sound of Vishnu, is needed in the adaptation of matter to spirit. Perfected wisdom results in omniscience, just as perfected hearing results in omnipresence. So at this stage, you are working as a soul when you are working with these energies, sounding these notes that bring you to this, in other words, the song of Vishnu, as it were, would be the song of the soul, that would be related to that still small voice within. It's going to be also an expression of the heart chakra, also of the head chakra, the intelligence of the heart, right? And it's used in form building, not in the creation of matter, but in the manipulation of matter to build the appropriate forms for the indwelling spirit. These could be thought forms or literal vehicles on the higher planes that then hold the indwelling jiva. Any thoughts or questions? Kind of amazing material. Finally, as the note of the first or Mahadeva aspect follows upon the other two, he, meaning the now very high initiate, realizes himself as pure spirit, and on the consummation of the chord is merged in the self or the source from which he came. I think you don't even touch on this until the sixth initiation, which is, when one reunites with the monad and even higher levels, in order to fully personify this Mahadeva aspect. Though DK doesn't give us a word for this highest level of synthesis, the sound of Mahadeva must be related to omnipotence, the realization by the initiate that he or she is one with the first aspect of divinity. What is the quote unquote consummation of the chord? In human terms, it is the fundamental note of matter, the perfect third of the synthesized personality, the fifth of the soul, and the octave of the monad. So the minor third is the personality identified being. The major third is the integrated personality who is responding to the fifth, right? So that's just a hypothesis for what the consummation of the chord might indicate. Okay, next up, the final summary passage from the section on the effects of the law economy in matter. Can we get a reader for this short passage?
And Veronica, did you have a question?
Yes, you said about the third, the fifth, and the eighth, Francis.
Yeah, I was saying the fundamental
Third is the personality, fifth you gave to the soul, and the eighth you gave to the spirit.
yeah, or monad.
Or monad. In music, I think we have 3, 5, and 7. Don't we have it that way?
The seventh of a chord is not a resolution.
It's the eighth.
What?
It's the eighth, the number 8.
Yeah, the 8 takes you back to the source, right? So you have the lower note is the note of manifestation, and then the two intermediate notes, the personality and the soul, and then the higher note is, you could say, what does he call it here? The consummation of the chord in that note. But the chord all sounds together on the, at the return to the monadic plane. So you then have all four notes sounding as a consummation. It's the difference between just the monadic note sounding and then the entire chord, which represents the moving forth into matter, all that is gained through the experience, the knowledge becoming wisdom, and the return back to the monad. Okay.
Thank you, Francis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, reader, please.
Kirsten, you want to read?
Mind is not, matter is not, and not is left, but the self merged in the ocean of the self. At each stage of relative attainment, one of the laws comes into sway. First the law of matter, then the law of groups, to be succeeded by the law of spirit and of liberation.
Thank you. Okay, so the self, capital S, subsumes all within its nature. It draws up into itself all stages of becoming. Although spirit and matter are one, and mind, the intermediary, one with them, only the self or life aspect remains for the initiate who knows the note of the Mahadeva. We may say that the law of matter relates to the 5 notes used by Brahma, who wields the law of economy. The law of groups relates to the 7 notes used by Vishnu, who wields the law of attraction. And the law of spirit and liberation relates to the 9 notes used by Shiva, who wields the law of synthesis, which is what's being described here. Disciples in our current cycle of becoming are dealing mostly with the law of attraction, reaching towards the law of synthesis, and leaving behind the law of economy, at least in its strictly human application. There's this wonderful passage in Initiation Human and Solar where he describes how in the aspirant, the law, the sound of Brahma is, which is the M of the AUM, has almost completely faded out, and that the U is sounding forth in full vibration, and that the A is being perceived, dimly perceived. So you could see how this is, the AUM is also progressive in that sense. Okay, next up, the last segment of this last division of the section 1 of TCF, which is entitled The Subsidiary Laws. Can we get a reader for these, please?
Magda, you want to read?
Subsidiary laws. Under the law of economy are 4 in number, dealing with the lower quaternary. 1, the law of vibration, dealing with the keynote or measure of the matter of each plane. By knowledge of this law, the material of any plane in its 7 divisions can be controlled. 2, the law of adaptation is the law governing the rotary movement of any atom on every plane and subplane. 3, the law of repulsion governs that relationship between atoms, which results in their non-attachment and in their complete freedom from each other. It also keeps them rotating at fixed points from the globe or sphere of opposite polarity. 4. The law of friction governs the heat aspect of any atom, the radiation of an atom, and the effect of that radiation on any other atom.
Thank you, Magda. Okay, so first we have the subsidiary laws under the law of economy are 4 in number, dealing with the lower quaternary. First, the law of vibration, dealing with the keynote or measure of the matter of each plane. So each plane has a keynote. You know, each subplane of the cosmic physical plane has a keynote to which key the matter of that plane vibrates. Every keynote vibrates at a particular frequency. And you know, we have to understand this isn't just high or low frequencies as we understand them, but there's going to be another level of frequencies that move from within to without, or inner and outer frequencies as well. The source keynote of a particular plane, determined by the law of vibration, is initiated and sounded in its purest form on the atomic subplane of each plane. So you have the pure source of, for instance, the keynote of the mental plane sounding forth. And I'm sure it's very connected with the monastic permanent atom. You know, each of these keynotes, you could say, is the note of the permanent atoms of that plane, right? And that sounds forth and animates the entire plane. Okay, next. By knowledge of this law, the material of any plane in its 7 divisions can be controlled. Such control comes from mastery of the keynote of a given atomic subplane. For this keynote or measure carries the vibratory qualities of all the subplanes, the 7 divisions beneath it. We might hypothesize that every subplane is characterized by vibrations which demonstrate the musical divisions of the original keynote, such as the minor, major, third, and the fifth, right? But, you know, we have no way of knowing the specifics, you know, like for instance, if on the mental plane, we have the sounding forth of that primary keynote that defines the very nature, and you could say even holds that sphere of being that is the mental plane, that holds it in existence, and that each of the lesser subplanes is comes into being through an aspect of that first note or part of the chord. Now, trying to determine what those are would be daunting, to say the least. You know, we'd probably be on the safest ground to say that the second subplane is the fifth. In other words, it's not just, you know, counting up from the bottom, the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. It would be, you know, the primary is always the keynote. The secondary is the fifth. And so I would say from that, it's likely that the second subplane of any of these planes would be sounding forth the fifth. I just hypothesis, you know. And based on that, you might say that the third subplane is the major third. Below that, it's quite difficult to determine, right? just what aspect of the chord. And as I said, there are also inner dimensions of these chords that would suggest a whole other demonstration of sound. And of course, just like we don't know about a wheel turning on itself or fourth dimensional motion, this would be the musical equivalent of that, right? Okay. Okay, next up, second, the law of adaptation is the law governing the rotary motion of any atom on every plane and subplane. So let's take a look at what MDR has to say about this law. Can we get a reader, please?
Nisa, you want to read?
Oh, sure. Hang on a second. Sorry, I had to cough. The law of adaptation is the law governing the rotary movement of any atom on every plane and subplane. Adaptation is a factor which is related to time. Rotary motion is measured in terms of cycles achieved per unit of time, i.e., so many revolutions, rotations per unit of time. Adaptation occurs often through a slowing down or speeding up of a rotating unit with respect to another unit that sets the standard. Some move ahead, he follows after. Some move behind, he sets the pace. Every rotating unit has its appropriate frequency of rotation given the rotating units with which it is associated, and the preeminent frequency to which all frequencies must accord. The application of this law of adaptation to discipleship on the human level may be inferred without too much difficulty. Thank you.
Any thoughts about this? Okay, next up. These are just very brief descriptions of these four subsidiary laws. Third, the law of repulsion governs that relationship between atoms which results in their non-attachment and in their complete freedom from each other. It also keeps them rotating at fixed points from the globe or sphere of opposite polarity. So we can understand that the law of repulsion promotes freedom and has a close relation to the first ray and to that part of the sixth ray which is allied to the first ray. We can also hypothesize from this passage that the structure of our solar system is dependent for its maintenance on the law of repulsion, because sustained relational position in space depends upon this law. But it seems to me the law of attraction must also play an equal part. Probably it is the combination of these two laws that fixes the position of any unit in space. The law of repulsion also protects individuality, preventing a given unit from being prematurely absorbed into greater units, thus preserving the purpose and design of the lesser unit until that purpose has been fulfilled, at which time merging through these law of attraction can take place. And then finally we have the law of friction governs the heat aspect of any atom, the radiation of an atom, and the effect of that radiation on any other atom. So we know that friction increases activity and thus heat. According to the heat generated through friction, so will be the quantity of radiation which will impact other atoms. interestingly, harmonious vibration reduces friction. So we might hypothesize that through the increased harmony present on each successive subplane of a given plane, less friction occurs. And thus, the less this law applies, it actually gives way to the law of attraction rather than to the law of economy. Okay, any thoughts or questions? All right, could we get a reader for this next section, please?
Ron, do you want to read?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Every atom of matter can be studied in four aspects and is governed by one or other or all of the four above mentioned laws. A, an atom vibrates to a certain measure. B, it rotates at a certain speed. C, it acts and reacts upon its environing atoms. D, it adds its quota to the general heat of the atomic system, whatever that may be. These general rules relating to atomic bodies can be extended not only to the atoms of the physical plane, but to all spherical bodies within the system, and including the system also regarding it as a cosmic atom. The tiny atom of the physical plane, a plane itself, a planet, and a solar system all evolve under these rules, and all are governed by the law of economy in one of its four aspects.
Thank you. Okay, yes, Barbara.
So I'm wondering with the latest theories of atoms that the law that seems to be significant at the moment is the law of entanglement. And that atoms are not considered as a physical item, but a dynamic in a field. So I wonder if at some point new laws will be introduced, or if it's just a variation of a combination of these laws.
Well, first of all, the atom being described here is a subjective atom that carries an indwelling jiva, and carries a life aspect. Now, that can be an atom of substance. And, there's some debate in circles and theosophical circles about whether that is literally an atom of substance, is literally the scientific atom, or if it also includes congeries of literal physical atoms, therefore molecular groupings. But these laws also apply, for instance, to every human being who is considered an atom, right? In other words, a series of vehicles that has at its center the spark of mind, which is the indwelling jiva, right? And that every discrete unit of consciousness is an atom as described by DK. And it's those to which these laws apply, not just the literal scientific law, atoms of substance. However, they do, to my mind, also include those. I don't know, I'm not up on my current physics to know about the law of entanglement, but it sounds like that there's continuing to be a dismantling of, 19th century physics, wherein the Platonic idea of, these, of atoms like they were marbles, is being further, that system is being further dismantled. But I don't know specifically about that. Maybe you could say more about the law of entanglement.
Yes, there's a proposition that that particles come in pairs, and one spins one way and another spins another way. And even if they're at very, very large distances, a shift in the spin of one particle will affect the spin of the other.
How absolutely fascinating. Almost like the Gnostic syzygy, this idea that everything comes in pairs. This is also an Egyptian belief, that there is no singularity as such, but there is also a sometimes hidden, in fact, I think always hidden, um, secondary, which acts as the yin yang, uh, acts as the yin, really, pairing of that, of what we normally think of as that individual. In case of the atom, well, you're describing how this is now coming to the fore through science. It's quite interesting. So, what do we do with that? Well, it's interesting because we're just about to get to a chart that where a description of the pleroma, which is a Gnostic concept, is explored. And we'll dive into these syzygies, and maybe we can keep in mind this new concept of, is it called atomic entanglement?
Yes, a particle entanglement.
Particle entanglement. Okay. So, all right. Yes, Nisa.
Well, you said that the human being is considered an atom, and that unit of consciousness. As you go through, could you like speak to how these points can ground for us in 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 life, on our level? Is there a vibratory place that the human being can ground these concepts?
Well, we're doing them without realizing it all the time, through the spark of the Manasaputra is that spark of mind through which we identify with the world, stands at the center of our being. That's, you could say, the point in the center of the sphere. And that's each one of us, right? That's who we're relating to, when we're with each other, is that inherent central point, you could say, right? Which is the indwelling jiva within the atom of a human being. Of course, there's more complexity than that, because you have the three sheaths that are like literally like sheaths, like nested spheres, you could say, of this sphere of consciousness. Does that help? Does that begin to help?
Well, I don't know. I find cosmic fire a lot of times way above my pay grade. And I kind of like to, try to go, okay, how does this look at, as a reflection, as above, so below? What does this
Yeah.
look
Well,
like?
what I just said is
Yeah.
really true, which is that, we we don't think of ourselves in this way, but we really are atoms of beingness, which means discrete vehicles that carry within the life aspect, which is that point at the center, right? And that's how all our interrelations are oriented. And then as consciousness grows, those individual atoms congregate and become congrues, and you then gain group consciousness. And that becomes an atom, right? That group, if you have enough members in a group who develop group consciousness, then that group becomes a new atom, right? Because there are atoms within atoms within atoms within atoms, right? Because even the cells of our body have at their center that point of fire that is the life aspect. They have already grouped to form, our expression as a human being. And when we group together, then the greater atom is formed. So you could say from one point of view, the entire hierarchy is a monumental atom of life, right? With a spark at the, with a great jiva at the center, which is, we talk about how the Christ is the master of angels and of, the master of masters and of the angelic kingdom. It could be that that's the great animating spark at the center of the hierarchical atom, right? You could say each planetary logos is also an atom, and at that level you literally see them as spheres, which is the essential nature even of the lesser atoms. Okay, gosh, we could talk about this forever. Thank you, Nisa. Okay, we read this. Yes. Okay, so first we have wait a minute here. There we go. Every atom of matter can be studied in four aspects and is governed by one or other or all of the four above mentioned laws. Those laws being these, right? These law of vibration, adaptation, repulsion, and friction. Actually, it's hard to imagine an example where all four subsidiary laws are not applicable to a given atom of substance, for all atoms are subject to the keynote of the subplane on which they are found. They literally sound forth that keynote. All atoms have rotary movement that make them subject to the law of adaptation. All atoms repulse other atoms in order to maintain their freedom and non-attachment. And finally, all atoms radiate heat. This is confirmed in the next passage, quote, A, an atom vibrates to a certain measure. B, it rotates at a certain speed. C, it acts and reacts upon its environing atoms. And D, and I wonder if, Barbara, if that C isn't part of the entanglement of particles idea. In D, it adds its quota to the general heat of the atomic system, whatever that may be. Whatever that may be, not whatever that may be. Anyway, next, these general rules relating to atomic bodies can be extended not only to the atoms of the physical plane, but to all spheroidal bodies. This gets to what I was just talking to Nisa about within the system, and including the system also, regarding it as a cosmic atom. So at the top of this passage, DK says, every atom of matter can be studied in 4 aspects. Here, he extends the reach of these subsidiary laws to include all atoms, right? Or discrete informed units of consciousness within the solar system, including the form aspect of the solar logos. However, measuring the effect of these 4 subsidiary laws on the planetary or solar logoi would be pretty much impossible, for we lack the cosmic perspective necessary to determine these effects. For example, what is the keynote or key measure of our solar atom? What is its place in space relative to other solar atoms with which it is associated? I mean, we can see the stars in the sky and know how far they are in light years from each other, but and subjectively, that is, what is its place? What is our solar logos place in space relative to, for instance, the other 6 solar system of which it forms a greater logos? What is the period of rotation of the ring past knot of the solar system? You know, and finally, how much heat does the solar logos radiate in relation to the greater form to which it belongs? Okay, next, the teeny atom of the physical plane, a plane itself, a planet, and a solar system all evolve under these rules, and all are governed by the law of economy in one of its 4 aspects. In other words, all informed spheres of life are subject to these 4 laws. Though these laws may demonstrate differently, they would also apply to all etheric lives, or all etheric atoms of substance, right? Not just the physical atoms, even, you know, going all the way up to a solar logos. We have the physical, but then the more pronounced causal forms are in etheric matter. Okay. And finally, we have the last summary paragraph of the first section of the book, which we're going to finish this time in this session. It might, DK tells us, be added in closing that this law is one that initiates have to master before they can achieve liberation. They have to learn to manipulate matter and to work with energy or force in matter under this law. They have to utilize matter and energy in order to achieve the liberation of spirit and to bring to fruition the purpose of the logos in the evolutionary process. So we're going to turn to MDR for the last word on this section of the book, but I'll just say that these aspects that must be mastered, like the manipulation of matter and the ability to work with energy, under the subsidiary laws and the law of economy itself, are functions of initiation. They come through the progressive initiations. So let's see what Michael has to say. Last word on this entire section of TCF. Could we get a reader, please?
Tom, do you want to read?
We cannot escape rendering unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. One cannot catapult himself into a higher level of development before fulfilling the lower levels. Each higher level of development must rest upon a strong foundation. Another way of viewing this is that natural laws must be fulfilled and maintained before the laws of the soul and spirit can be fulfilled. We stand upon the platform of matter form as we attempt to enter the worlds of spirit soul. It is not possible to skip any phase of development. All proceeds gradually and by grades. We ask queries. What may this working with energy and manipulating matter actually look like in the life of an initiate? May it be suggested that in the building of potent, beautiful, and intelligent thought forms to aid the divine plan may be seen the power to manipulate matter. The masters and mightier initiates do not bother much with the manipulation of physical plane matter, as their knowledge of magic is such that correct work upon the mental plane will automatically contribute to the desired changes upon the physical.
Thanks, Tom. Any thoughts about this? Questions? Okay. When we turn the page, we come to section 2, entitled Solar Fire, the Fire of Mind, which at 1,007 pages forms the bulk of a treatise on cosmic fire. This section is made up of 6 divisions. After the introductory questions, which actually spans a number of pages, we have division A, manas or mind and its nature, B, manas as a cosmic, systemic, and human factor, C, the egoic ray and solar fire. You know, each of these sections, some of them are hundreds of pages. Division D, thought elementals and fire elementals. E, motion on the plane of mind. And division F, the law of attraction, the very final division, just like the law of economy was formed the last section of this third aspect division, which is the first part of TCF. So the scope of these 6 divisions is stupendous. In this section, the term fire of mind primarily refers to solar fire, originating from the cosmic mental plane, which finds its microcosmic expression on what humanity calls the systemic higher mental plane. This aspect of mind is directly aligned with the law of attraction, as opposed to the lower mind, which operates through the third aspect of divinity and is thus governed by the law of economy. But before we get into division A, DK poses a series of introductory questions. Could we get a reader for these?
Yeah, just before that, I saw Nadel's hand
Okay, go ahead, Nadell.
pop up, and your mic's starting to do that weird thing it does,
Oh, it is.
Francis.
Okay. Let me go to my audio settings here, see what I get. Testing, 1, 2, testing. Is that better?
No, it's like it goes like it's all getting distorted.
Okay. Well, maybe what we should do, we're at the end of the hour.
Yeah.
I tell you, is it Nadell you were going to have read?
No, Nadell was going to ask. I think Nadell had a question from
Okay, go
before we
ahead,
moved
Nadell.
on.
Go ahead.
It's not important, really.
No.
It's not important.
I just muted you, Francis, because it's breaking up pretty bad. Nadell, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to comment that on that last paragraph that you read at the end of the first section, it seemed as though what was being said is that the initiate essentially has to become identified with the second aspect and consciously, as that second aspect, working through the third aspect. Does that just occur to me?
Yeah, that's totally true. In fact, you're already very much involved with the monad when you become an adept and a master of the third aspect. So all three aspects are at work in the initiate, who is gradually working to overcome the in all of the illusion, the great illusion of the cosmic physical plane, right? We as those who are aspiring to soul contact are working with the lower quaternary in dismantling glamour, Maya, and illusion. But for the great initiates, the higher initiates, they're working with a much higher level of illusion that manifests through the entire cosmic physical plane. It's not until the ninth initiation that this third aspect, cosmically speaking, is overcome.